Kitchen hacks everyone should know. Lesson 5. Everyone's grocery budget has gotten out of control. One thing you can stop spending money on? Breadcrumbs. Let me show you how I save money by making both plain and seasoned breadcrumbs at home. The first thing you need to do is start collecting your bread. And this is actually the easy part. My family never eats the ends of a loaf of bread. So instead of throwing them away, I just take them out and I pop them in a Ziploc bag and put them in the freezer. Also, whenever we grill, doesn't matter if it's hamburgers or hot dogs, we always have one lonely little bun left in the bag. Now I know this little lonely bun is never going to get eaten, and so what I could do is I could just stick it back in the pantry and it'll stay there for about a month until I find it again, and by then it's stale and it's moldy and nobody's going to eat it. Instead of throwing it away, stick it in my bag, save it for later. Once my bag is full, I thaw the bread and cut or tear them into smaller pieces. Then I arrange the pieces on a baking sheet and toast the bread at 350 degrees for 10 to 15 minutes. For more even browning, stir the bread about halfway through. You want the bread to be lightly browned and crispy. Allow the breadcrumbs to cool, then transfer the pieces to a food processor. Pulse the bread until they turn into crumbs. The longer you pulse the bread, the finer the breadcrumbs will be. At this point, the breadcrumbs are plain, but if you want to jazz them up with a little seasoning, keep watching. For Italian-style breadcrumbs, add 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese, 2 tablespoons of dried parsley, 2 tablespoons of Italian seasoning, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 1 teaspoon of salt, and half a teaspoon of ground black pepper to 1 cup of plain breadcrumbs. For Cajun-style breadcrumbs, add 1 teaspoon of paprika, half a teaspoon of ground black pepper, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper, 1 teaspoon of oregano, 2 tablespoons of dried parsley, 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes, and half a teaspoon of salt to 1 cup of plain breadcrumbs. Finally, for garlic and herb breadcrumbs, add 2 teaspoons of dried minced garlic, 2 tablespoons of dried parsley, 2 teaspoons of Italian seasoning, half a teaspoon of salt, and half a teaspoon of ground black pepper to 1 cup of plain breadcrumbs. Store your breadcrumbs in an airtight container. Use your homemade breadcrumbs just as you would any store-bought variety.